Rat facts: the Hs-129. In the mid-1930s, the German military and its allies had noticed the effectiveness of ground attack aircraft. This would lead them to create their own ground attack plane. However, with the concept of ground attack aircraft being relatively new, the aviation ministry had to come up with a few specifications based off of assumptions, instead of basing it off of proper field experience. They would require such things as a well-armored engine and well-armored cockpit, with the cockpit having to be as close to the nose as possible, and also due to some bureaucracy, they would require using engines that were not being used in existing aircraft. Under these requirements, two aircraft would be chosen to compete, the FW-189 and the Hs-129, with the BV-141 being an honorable mention as it was mainly rejected based on the fact that it looked kinda funny, which in fairness, it does. The Hs-129 would be well armored but at a cost. The cockpit was extremely cramped and only had a tiny window to see out of. The cockpit was so cramped in fact that many of the instruments needed to monitor the aircraft were mounted outside of the aircraft, either directly on the engines or on the nose of the aircraft, leading to the very minor downside of not being able to use them if there was a cloud, or the sun caused glare on the glass, or any other number of things. The plane would also experience issues in that it was 12% overweight and the engines were 8% underpowered, though this may have been a good thing as the controls became inoperable as speed increased. You might think this would mean that the FW would win out over the HS, however the FW was also running into many of the same problems. The only real deciding factor between the FW and the HS was that the HS was smaller and cheaper. In the end, over 850 different variants of the Hs-129 would be built, but they hardly made any major changes in its usability, with many different aircraft not even changing designation. However, it wasn't all bad, as the Hs-129 would be a great morale booster for German troops fighting in Russia at the time, and it did see relative success in backline attacks on convoys and airfields. And actually, there'd be some pretty astonishing numbers attributed to the effectiveness of the Hs-129, with one pilot being credited with 80 tanks destroyed. So remember everyone, just because you might be a little goofy and ill-equipped to do your job, doesn't mean that you're worthless.